Hey, Eric. How are you doing tonight?
I'm good. I'm still a little tired, though.
You're good.
Yeah.
I am not tired. You would not believe how much I slept last night. I didn't have meetings at like 6:30 in the morning this morning, so I actually, even though my alarm went off at my normal time, I actually rolled over and went back to sleep for an hour. It was great.
Oh, lucky you.
It was great.
I'm still trying to catch up from the weekend. My weekend, the excitement of my weekend was driving to Boise and back. A 15-hour round trip.
Oh my gosh. I hope you got an early start.
We left at 6:30. So we left at 6:30 and I got home around 9 p.m.
That is a long day in the car.
Yeah, but
that is a long day in the car.
Yeah, well, why was I in the car for so long?
Why were you in the car, Eric?
I suppose that people may want to know. So normally about this time of year, we stick my boy on an airplane and send him to Grandma and Grandpa's house. And he gets to have some one-on-one time with Grandma and Grandpa. And this year, for reasons I don't know why, we chose not to stick him on an airplane.
Wise.
And Grandma and Grandpa... Grandpa, I guess, actually, agreed to kind of meet us close to halfway. It was a 5-hour drive for them and a 7-hour drive one way for me. So we decided to meet in Boise, and I handed my boy over to Grandpa, and they went the rest of the way. And he's been at Grandpa's house until vacation, which starts tomorrow. Then we meet up again. So... A long time.
That's a lot of driving for 3 days at Grandpa's house. But okay.
Yeah, but the options were send him on an airplane or drive. So we chose drive. But the one bonus was I got to spend a lot of time listening to The Way of Kings. So the fourth book is coming out in November. And so I thought I should start rereading those. I seem to have a lot of extra time sitting around at home and not driving. So I thought, well, I'll read those. And then I think last week maybe you had mentioned, just get the audiobook. And I was like, I'm going to have a 15-hour car drive. That might actually be a good idea.
The audiobooks are fantastic.
I grabbed the audiobook, and it's 45-hour audiobook, I think, total. So
those are not small books or not short books.
I didn't even get a third of the way through because we didn't listen to the audiobook the whole time. We had to take a few breaks. But so I've been trying to listen to it, and I have discovered that I just am not a good audiobook listener person.
You have mentioned this to me.
Yeah, I have tried audiobooks, and my brain wanders off. If my eyeballs are not paying attention to what's going on, my brain wanders off. So what I have been doing, though, is I have been listening to the audiobook and doing the follow along in the Kindle app with the audiobook. It'll actually highlight the text as it reads it, and you can follow along. So I'm listening to it, but reading with my eyes. I don't know if this is even makes any sense.
That blows my mind.
I know.
I don't think I could do that. I honestly don't think I could do that.
It does not. They do not read as fast as I read. Obviously. Exactly. So sometimes I'll read ahead, and then I'll just flip to the next page, and the audio will jump to where I'm at. So if I find myself doing that occasionally, but I have tried. I've been trying that to see if that helps me follow along in the audiobook better, but.
The narrators are really good in that.
Yes.
You know, they do a wonderful job. But
being able to do the multiple voices, I do like.
But what you need, so this is why I love audiobooks, is because I've got lots of things in my life that that need doing, but that don't need my brain. So they need my hands, they need my like 10% of my brain, maybe, like mowing. or something like that. And so I can put on an audiobook or a podcast, and that is, that keeps my brain happy while I'm getting my stuff done. So I will volunteer to let you come over and drive my tractor, and you can use noise canceling headsets, and you can spend a couple hours on there. And I promise you, you will really appreciate audiobooks.
Well, I did appreciate the audiobook on the drive, because that was I needed not a whole lot of my brain, but enough of my brain to focus on driving, but that it didn't wander off, that my mind didn't wander off. So it worked driving. And that's when I typically used to listen. My podcast listening has gone way down as well, because I'm not driving places anymore.
Right.
I'm not going to work and back or running to lunch or, so a lot of my audio listening has gone way down. So anyways, I think that I've seen commentary to that point across the board. So it's a good time to be doing a podcast. Ha ha. That's right. Because everybody has free time to do a podcast, but no one has free time to listen.
Exactly. Oh, it's fine. It's fine.
Yeah.
So sorry. So that was your Saturday, just there and back, or Sunday?
Yes, that was Saturday. Was there and back again.
There and back again.
An Eric's Tale.
Oh, that's the Hobbit reference. Okay, sorry. I'm like, what's that reference from? Okay. I'm like, wait a second. I know this.
Yeah.
I know this. Anyway.
Yeah.
Well, let's see. I honestly, I was kind of pulling an Eric. I didn't quite remember what I did this weekend. But
it's in the past. What do you need to remember?
It is. I've been bad this last week or so. I haven't been writing. Normally I keep a journal, and I haven't been good. I need to get back on that horse. But I'll tell you one thing I did was we have this Kawasaki Mule. It's kind of a I don't know what you call it, a sport utility vehicle. No, that's a car. I don't know. It's not a four-wheeler.
ATV.
An ATV. Thank you. That's probably what it is. It's more of a work thing. It's more of a practical thing. It's got a little dump bed and just a two-seater.
You're not zooming around on sand dunes with it.
Yeah. And it's not zooming around on sand dunes. No, it's put 2 bales of hay in the back and drive it around and feed the critters kind of thing. But we've had it for a few years, and I have never changed the oil in it because I don't know. I probably should have. No, not probably. I should have. But we only just hit the 50-hour mark, which is when, according to the user's manual, you're supposed to change the first oil at 50 hours and then like every 100 hours after that. Okay, whatever. But we don't drive it that much because obviously we've, I don't know, had it for a few years and it's anyway. So honestly, it was starting to run a little rough. And I was like, spark plugs, air filter, oil change. Yeah, maybe all of the above. Let me just do that. So I think it was Sunday. I was like, well, it was early afternoon, and I was like, I've got a couple hours. I wasn't sure what I was going to do next, and I was like, well, you know what? That really needs done. Let me go do that. And I didn't think it would take me very long. I'm like, how hard can it be? How hard can it be?
Famous last words.
So, I'm like, yeah, it'll take me half an hour. Cause what do you got to do? You got to like pull a drain plug, drain out the oil, put the oil in it, replace the spark plugs. Whoa, it's not gonna be hard. So anyway, so as with anything, you start, watch a YouTube video. Okay. So I did.
Of course, that's where you start.
and which was good. And then the first 45 minutes of this, which maybe it shouldn't count, is that I actually had to run into, I think it was Quest Auto Parts. Anyway, the nearest auto parts store and get a oil filter and a couple spark plugs, which I did. And then when I got back, I was like, okay, I could not for the life of me find the dang oil inlet, like where you pour the oil into. I finally had to get out the owner's manual And because I must not have had the same exact model that I was watching the YouTube video on, because the oil cap was underneath the seat. You had to kind of push the seat up, and then it was underneath there, which I hadn't figured out. Anyway, so and that's actually how you got down into the oil filter too. Which that was my second thing. Is I got underneath. I pulled the plug, drained the oil out. There was only like maybe a quart of oil, and there should have been 2 quarts of oil in there. So either I had it on, it was not perfectly level. So I'm kind of going at maybe there's still a bit of the old stuff in there that I didn't get quite drained out, but there was not enough oil in there. And then I could not for the life of me get that stupid oil filter off. And I had, I was like, okay, what have I got? I've got a wrench. I could not get a wrench in there. It was not big enough. And I had this, I don't really change the oil in my cars these days. Jiffy Lube or Oil Can Henry's is just really convenient. And I had this rubberized thing that's supposed to help, one of those like oil filter wrench, right? You pull it tight and then it's supposed to cinch it down. I could not for the life of me get it off. So I had to make another run into town to get a oil wrench. Well, actually, I ran to the local store, which is only like 10 minutes away, thinking they've got a little tool section and that would save me time. I bought the one oil wrench they had there, but of course it was too big and I had not brought the oil filter with me. So I was looking at it going, I think that's too big, but I'm here. I will spend the $6 and I will take it home.
Right.
Only to find out it was too big. So I texted my wife and I'm like, all right, I'm driving into town again to get an oil wrench. And then, so I went into Harbor Freight just because all I want is I need one of those oil wrenches. And they had 2 wrenches there. Well, one that I thought would be super cool that was kind of a retracty thingy that did not work at all. So I was super glad that I had, in an abundance of, I don't want to make a third trip in, bought both types of wrenches they had there. And so anyway, yeah, I all in, I spent more than I would have paid to get the oil changed in my car, because I wound up buying 3 oil canister wrenches. But whatever. I got the oil changed, got the spark plugs replaced. Air filter seemed totally clean, so I didn't do anything with that. And now it runs much better. And it took me like 3 hours all told.
Next time, in 30 hours? 30 hours of runtime, it'll take you 30 minutes.
Well, exactly. And although, yeah, I think this needs to be they say in your car, right? It's 3 months or 3,000 miles or something like that.
Right.
Yeah. I need to not go another 100 hours if it's going to take us 5 years. That's probably no bueno.
Right.
But
maybe once.
Anyway, that was one of my little fun things this weekend. Blah.
Yeah. Well, after my very long day in the car, on Sunday, I opened a jar of the pickles that we did. Ooh. I know it's a little early.
It is early. I did too, though.
Boy, were they were good. I opened a jar with the fresh dill.
Ooh.
And the pickles were still, I opened a jar of whole pickles. So not slices. I had wholes, and they were still very crunchy. And they were a little sour, but I was very pleased with the pickles, and I'm looking forward to what they'll taste like in another few weeks.
Okay. So I didn't do that many jars of just the fresh dill. So I did not open one of them because I want to give them time. But I opened one of my hybrid jars, and it's tasty. It's not as strong as I think it will be in another couple of weeks, but
right.
But still perfectly tasty.
Yes.
So, and I have 2 jars for you, because you gave me 2 jars of yours to try out. I have 2 jars for you sitting up on the counter.
Awesome.
So anyway, next time I see you.
Yeah. It'll be at least a week.
Exactly. For you to go to Idaho and back.
That's right. Yet another trip to Idaho and back.
Well, are you going to get more book time?
I have already warned the rest of the family that as the driver, I am going to control the audio, and if they don't want to listen to my book, they can put in headphones and listen to something else. So, yes, there will be more book time on the road.
Fantastic. I will have you know, so those books, they're all like 45 hours, like you said. My kids have listened to them each probably at least 3 times.
Oh, wow.
Because I've listened to them all at least twice through. Once by myself, once with them, and then I think only twice maybe. They're really good though. They're really good. Okay. All right. That's going to lead into my something fun. That'll be my something fun. All right. But more about that in a few minutes.
Spoiler alert.
Yep. Let's see. How about some follow-up?
I see you threw the follow-up in there.
I did. I put 2 things in. So the first isn't really follow-up. It's kind of like a minor topic, and maybe some more stuff will happen about this, but I saw it on Twitter this afternoon, and I was like, oh, that is so ironic. Oh, it is so ironic. But there's this. So this company, Substack, which I think their business is like mailing list management for, if you want to do a mailing list, send it out to people weekly or, whatever. So they changed their privacy policy and publisher agreements and stuff like that. And then this is a company that does email for a living, right? And the reason they're sending out the email is for the privacy policy. And they send the email with 500 people on the to line.
Oops.
For a bunch of them. So they didn't say how many. It's I don't know at this point how many they sent out, but in the replies to the Twitter thread, there were at least a couple of people saying, "Well, I got the GRs to MEs." kind of. So that clearly they're like batching the emails, but what should have probably been in the BCC, somebody forgot the B, and the fact that it's a company that knows and does email, and it was about privacy, and they just disclosed the private emails of all of their customers.
Right.
Not good. But I don't know really anything else about this. The link I'll throw in here for notes. I saw it. I saw a comment that was retweeted by somebody I follow. But Substack themselves, like from their Twitter account, they put out a thing that said, let's see, hold on, I got to actually go to this. They say, this evening we published an update to our privacy policy, terms of use, and publisher agreements, and mistakenly sent an email notification to a small percentage of Substack users that included many email addresses in the to line. While we caught the error early, it was too late to retract that first batch. We're so sorry this happened, and we are aware of the irony. This was a genuine mistake. We feel terrible about it, and we will do everything in our power to never repeat it. So, anyway, that's the official statement so far on the Twitterverse. But I thought that was
oops.
Security's hard.
Yeah, and mistakes happen. So I got it.
Yeah,
I get it. But bummer.
It's more the irony than the mistake. Yeah, it's very Alanis Morissette. So my second thing was just another little bit about the Twitter hack from a couple of weeks ago. This email or article I saw, I think I saw it today, might have been yesterday, says that more than 1,000 people at Twitter had the ability to aid the hack of accounts. So Basically, it says more than 1,000 Twitter employees and contractors as of earlier this year had access to internal tools that could change user settings and hand control to others. Which, if true, and this is from people who are no longer at Twitter, basically how it was as of earlier in 2020. Sure, maybe they did an amazing job of reducing their attack surface, but I wouldn't lay my money on that.
Right.
So, this is the general concept that this violates is the concept of least privilege, right? You want the fewest number of people that need to have access to something. And you want everybody who can access whatever it is to only have the amount of control or access or privileges that they need to get their job done. Right. Because it reduces what the chances are of something going wrong.
Right. Mistakes or willful negligence.
Yeah. I mean, most breaches, even insider threats or insider led items are done through neglect or negligence or not out of ill will. Or not maliciously, but that doesn't really matter at the end of the day in most cases, because once the horse is out of the barn, it's too late to shut the barn door. But in fact, in like large enterprises and in like very critical infrastructure, they'll even go so far as to have what they call privileged account management, which is a way of, yes, Eric, you should have the rights to do this, but you actually don't have the rights from your normal user. You have to essentially escalate your privilege by the use of tools to get, super user or the password for a little bit of time, at which point in time you can do your job and then you let it go again. And, that kind of
Sudo make me a sandwich.
Yeah, Sudo make me a sandwich. But that basically keeps the the aperture at which you have the elevated privileges to the minimum amount required, and just further reduces attack surface. So anyway, but what it really boils down to is, as a general rule of life hygiene, you should just minimize your risk. Why wouldn't you? It's just kind of a good practice. But anyway, in a company of how big is Twitter?
4,600 as of September 2019. It said, so less than 5,000.
So call it 5,000 employees. Out of 5,000 employees, you're saying 1,000 of them, 20% of them, should have the rights to edit and manage users in Twitter?
That does seem like a lot.
That seems egregiously high. But yeah. Anyway, more to come, I'm sure. I haven't really been on the lookout, but have you seen Twitter support post anything more this past
No,
week?
they haven't posted anything since last week, so I haven't seen anything new.
I haven't seen anything. All right, well, those were my two semi follow-ups. How about topic? What'd you bring today for a topic?
Well, so this week I was poking around and stumbled across a massive leak of Nintendo source code, which I thought was interesting. There was the Vice article that I linked here in the notes. Basically, there was, and they don't know what happened. Apparently, Nintendo has not issued any comment or any kind of cease and desist, and people are going through the stolen material, which includes source code, development history, prototypes, a bunch of emails from various groups. So it got leaked somewhere and people thought it was a scam. initially, and then people started playing with it. And so you can go through and see some of the things you get. Anyways, they're just if you're interested in video games, Nintendo history, it would not be hard to find tons of stuff. Like people have been tweeting out essentially nuggets of things that they're finding. The evolution of Yoshi as a pixel art thing. It was long and skinny initially before it became kind of short and fat. I don't know what's the right word for it. That's probably mean, and I think it's just fascinating to see this kind of history of the video games, which the article also talks about preservationists who are like, we don't normally get this kind of information about the history of a video game. And from a historical or preservationist perspective, this is great. But on the flip side, this was stolen and was obtained illegally. So, what do you do? Anyways, it's a pretty long article talking about the things that were available. Kind of, no one knows who. Well, it doesn't say who has done it. It talks about past Nintendo leaks and what has happened in past Nintendo leaks. It's a pretty long article, but
so none of the files are more recent than either of these two.
No, these files were all from like emails from 1994. And just lots of odd things.
Wow.
And there's, YouTube videos are popping up. The developers, old guys who were developers on, various projects are looking at the source code and some of the stuff coming out and commenting on Twitter about how'd they get all this stuff? This was my stuff that I wrote. What's going on?
Like 20 years ago.
Yeah, which then, of course, got me thinking about, God, what code was I writing 20 years ago? And if it all of a sudden got leaked, what would I do? It would be very boring, though. No one would want to see. I'm trying to think of no one would want to see how the install for Novell NetWare worked, I don't think. The first Java-based install for Novell NetWare. So...
I wonder. Yeah, I don't have. Obviously, I think I've been a good steward, to the best of my knowledge, of my past history. So, when I worked at HP, everything stayed at HP. When I worked at my previous company, everything stayed at the previous company. Yeah. But I actually did my thesis on the work that I was doing at HP when I was at HP. So I don't know that. In fact, I don't think there's any code in there per se, but, I don't know. I looked at that not too terribly long ago, cause I've got a leather bound copy of it on the bookcases down here in the basement. And, I was like, oh, look at that. LaTeX. This is very clearly LaTeX formatted.
Right.
Anyway.
Fun.
Fun.
Anyway, so that's what caught my eye. It'll be interesting to see if Nintendo comes out and says anything. But the conspiracy theorists, apparently I wasn't aware of a lot of these things, but apparently there was theories that Luigi was actually in Super Mario 64, hidden somewhere. Now they're going through the source code and finding references to Luigi in the source code of Super Mario 64.
Oh, wow.
And so it was real. He really was supposed to be in there, and who knows why he was not or where he was. So anyways, it's from an interest point of view, I can see why it's got a lot of people excited because, Nintendo is, I think, equally as secretive as a company like Apple when it comes to what they do and how they like to keep control over most aspects of everything. So we'll see what happens in the next few days, weeks, I suppose.
Wow. Sorry, I'm looking through this.
Yeah, just scrolling through. there's tons of stuff, including places where 4-letter words are used in the source code, things like that.
Yeah. WTF. I haven't seen this tool I made for Star Fox for almost 30 years. I wrote it in early C++ to teach myself the language. Where the heck well, he didn't say heck, have hackers got all this obscure data from?
Right.
That's amazing. Well, interesting.
Yeah.
I might watch one or two of these linked YouTube videos. I think that I would keep my hands off of actually touching the source code just for my personal hygiene, but I would certainly watch a video about what they're doing.
Yeah.
Well, that is interesting. It'll be interesting to see if they figure out where it actually comes from and what and why Nintendo hasn't moved yet, because it seems out of character.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll see. Anyways.
All right. Very cool. That's a nice article. Nice one. Yeah. Nice one, Eric. Okay. Mine, I brought 2 tonight, I think, if we get to the second one. The first is, so you know what the GDPR is, right?
Uh-huh.
General Data Privacy Regulation, I think. Right, the European law that basically talks about how and what you need to do to grant people control over some amount of control over their own information. But so this article is about a lawsuit that's being filed in Austria against Google, and more specifically about Android and the advertising ID that's in Android, which you're an Android user, I know. So, and I'm not. So yeah, you maybe have some firsthand experience with this a little bit, but, so evidently every Android phone has an advertising ID, and in the settings you can go in and you can set a couple of knobs about it for whether you want to allow, I think you can opt out of personalized ads, and you can reset the ID if you want. But what the lawsuit basically says is you don't have a way to opt in or provide consent in the first place. And that's one of the things that GDPR requires. And that if you reset the ID, which is, how you quote unquote opt out, all it does is create a new ID. And then, you're back in. So the comment in the article, of course, by the foundation that's kind of, helping further the suit, is that, let's see, the quote is, there's an option to reset the ID, but when you do so, you get a new one. So this will only be effective long-term if you do it repeatedly. It's like canceling a contract only under the condition you sign a new one. Right? So
that's a good analogy.
Yeah. So the other quote in here, so from Article 7 of the GDPR, says the data subject, so that's you, shall have the right to withdraw his or her consent at any time. Article 21 is a, quote, right to object at any time to processing of personal data concerning him or her for marketing and profiling, following which the law states the personal data should no longer be processed for such purposes. So basically, this is them saying you haven't provided a way to both provide consent and effectively opt out. So, the two, I don't know, there's 2 other things that I kind of pulled out of here. The first one of which is, Apple's not part of this, but evidently in the complaint itself, it says that Apple has a similar ID, but there's a way that when you opt out on iOS, and I actually don't know how you do this. I didn't look it up, and I'm wondering if I have or not. But when you opt out, it gets replaced with a non-unique value of all zeros, basically. So, the null advertising ID. And so, the thing is, though, so many companies don't just collect the one thing, right? That's not the only way in which you can wind up being tracked. And that's kind of the second thing I pulled out, or the last thing I pulled out of here, which was another link to a Norwegian Consumer Council investigation called Out of Control. But what they did is they measured something like a whole lot of web requests, something like, 50, 60, 70,000 web requests from 10 popular Android apps. I think these were all Android apps here. And then, determined who and where and how the data was going. And so that's actually the chart that I'll put in as the chapter art for this segment. But, essentially for the top, I don't know that these are the top 10 apps, but the 10 apps they chose were Grindr. There's a bunch of dating things here. So Grindr, Perfect 365, My Talking Tom 2, Clue, OkCupid, Happen, Tinder, Muslim, Wave Keyboard, and My Days. I don't know how or why they chose those, but what they did was they did this nice little line chart that basically says who's getting your data when you use these apps. And there's a lot, right? So the most prevalent is Google, which gets data from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, from 9 of the 10 apps. And then Facebook.
It's good 7, looks like.
7, right?
Yeah.
And then Apps Flyer. I mean, essentially, Grindr sends your data to 8 different data aggregators.
Right, because it's using it's importing or using their libraries for ad tracking, for
correct
statistic tracking, usage tracking, page views, a lot of the stuff that a lot of these apps use all the time. But if
Absolutely.
you use a third-party tool as opposed to kind of building something for yourself to track, you're subject to whatever their rules and guidelines are with what they do with the data after you send it to them.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. And I mean, we've talked on the show, I know, before about, Facebook's analytics, Google Analytics, etc. That is, a lot of apps will just, integrate the Facebook library and then leverage the free analytics that Facebook will provide. But, in doing so, they're getting your data. So the actual quote from this other report is, the quote, "The report claimed it could demonstrate how every time we use our phones, a large number of shadowy entities that are virtually unknown to consumers are receiving personal data about our interests, habits, and behavior." Yep. So anyway, I'll put a link to that other report in here as well, which I thought was worth looking at.
Cool.
Not new info though. But it will be interesting to see what happens with the lawsuit though. Does Google kind of fight it? Do they agree, settle, or do something, and then do something like what iOS is doing for giving you essentially the null tracking ID? Or do they, actually get the GDPR fine or something like that, right? Because GDPR, one of the scary things for companies about GDPR, which I haven't seen, I know there's been some cases that have gone all the way, but none of the biggies have really gotten hit by it's something like 4% of revenue is the maximum fine, which in the case of a Google or a Facebook is truly enormous amounts of money. Hypothetically. So Anyway, my second link that I saw this week that I thought was cool was, of course, a Catalan one from ZDNet, which is about a shadow attack in digitally signed PDF files. So this was kind of cool, kind of interesting, because, you know, obviously the premise of signing a document is, and I don't mean signing as in you've put your name to it, like, you know, here's my signature. It's the fact that the file itself has a digital signature that can be verified by other readers that the file hasn't been tampered with.
Right.
And, you know, when you sign a file, and you know, the places where most people in the world encounter signatures is probably twofold. The first is probably on the web, right? When you go to a website that is SSL enabled or TLS enabled, you know, the content that's being transferred to you is being signed by the certificate of the site and being verified by your browser that it hasn't been tampered with. And the second place that's most common is when people launch apps, especially apps gotten from an app store, whether it's Windows, Mac, iOS, Android. You know, those apps are signed by the app store provider that they haven't been tampered with, and that's how you can actually trust apps from an app store generally. Not that most people realize that's what's happening, but that's one of the reasons why app stores are generally as safe as they are, is because the app store provider has signed the binary.
Right. Nobody's messing with the bits you're downloading and putting malicious stuff in there.
Exactly. And if for some reason something happens, the app store provider can revoke the certificate that was signed with, and then it will no longer load. But for a document like a PDF, the intent for this would be that, you know, when the file is created or when the file is modified, like with a DocuSign or something like that, the file gets signed with a cryptographic hash that says this is the contents of the file at this point in time. Well, what this attack is it has essentially, I think the way to think about this, the way I'm thinking about it at least, is you've used Photoshop before, right? Uh-huh. And in many drawing programs, you have this concept of layers, right? Where you can have layers that you turn on and off in a drawing program that can show or hide content underneath it. And so if you have two layers in your document, and those layers both exist at the time that the document is created and are signed, then they are both within the signed content of the file, and the signature can be verified. But PDFs have the ability to essentially append data to the document, like extensions, and it's possible to essentially turn off or turn on or shuffle what the visible layers are by appending data to the document.
So appending data that's outside the purview of the digital signature.
Correct. So you haven't broken the signature. The segment of the document that is signed is still valid, but you have essentially said, you know, show layer 1, show layer 2, sign that, and then at the end you would say hide layer 1. And then whatever was on layer 2 would actually shine through and would be what, you know, the final person looking at the document would see. And, so this is a way of essentially spoofing or manipulating what people can see. And
so you would have to be able to get your bad bits into the document and signed hidden, and then you could later
manipulate it. Yes.
manipulate to show your bad bits at a later date where the person who's looking at it from the original will see just the good bits.
Correct. But you could, so if you were, I don't know, let's put, where do most people interact with PDFs? Probably in things like, buying a house or, some large contract, right? If somebody was able to manipulate those files prior to them being uploaded to DocuSign, and add the other layers in there, then they could have them all successfully signed, you returned, get them back and then flip them around. And, I know you thought you were buying this house for $100,000, but in reality it was 200,000, or whatever. I don't know.
Right. Whatever the thing was.
It also, seems to me to be something that is maybe a little more on the theoretical side, just because if you actually have the digital document that is still successfully signed, then you should be able to look and see that there are the multiple layers in there. And, so it seems like it would be identifiable.
Right. You could digitally prove that you agreed to a piece of the document that if someone comes and says, no, you agreed to this other thing because I did the hacky thing and showed the flip side, you could say, no, because I have the original and here's what the original actually shows, and the signatures would be the same.
Correct.
So I wonder how that would play in court somewhere or somehow.
That's why I said I think this is a little more theoretical than truly, something to get too worked up about. But the other thing that I found really interesting about it, the reason why it kind of popped up on my stack too, is the number of vulnerable readers is large. So 15 out of the 28 desktop PDF viewer applications are vulnerable.
Ouch. I noticed a bunch of Mac versions are as well.
Yeah. A whole bunch of Windows, a whole bunch of Mac, and even a couple of Linux versions. And they're vulnerable in a couple of axes too. They have 3 different techniques that they were doing here. A hide, a replace, and then a hide and replace. So if you are vulnerable to all of them, then you're the most vulnerable, which is I guess that must be where they got the number 15, because I'm looking at, there's a lot more of these circles colored in than it seems like 15. But it's 15 that are fully vulnerable to hide and replace, and 9 are partially vulnerable.
Got it.
So, together that's 24 out of 28, which is a lot. Yeah. So, anyway, that was cool, I thought.
Interesting.
In an interesting vulnerability. Anytime you're playing around with, signatures is potentially very interesting.
All right. Well, ready for my something fun?
Yeah, how about something fun?
My something fun that is yet another Raspberry Pi project I will never get to.
Okay.
So, but I thought this looked so cool because we've talked about it a few times.
Ooh.
In the past.
This looks
power
super
monitoring
cool.
system, right? You've seen those things like the kilowatt where you can, just on a specific plug, and then there's I think it's Sense. Is that what it's called?
Sense, yeah.
The whole home power consumption electricity. Well, this is a Raspberry Pi power monitoring system, and a guy has created a free and open source GitHub repo with free and open source hardware to plug on top of your Raspberry Pi to do power monitoring. And he even is selling kits for building it. If you don't want to do all the, if you don't want to borrow printing the PCB yourself or something like that. So mostly it just looks super cool because all the software is there.
So this isn't just a Raspberry Pi. He's got a custom. What do they call
board
them,
on
hats?
top. Yeah, he's got a custom board on top, which, you plug in these hardware monitors. Looks like they clamp over the wires to. I don't know how they all work, but he has really cool visualizations. And, anyways, it looked cool.
This is magnetic field monitoring.
There you go.
So when I'm very well, okay, sorry. Do you want another like minor John story of like
go for it?
Epic proportions. This is when I was in college. I was in college, right? I'm getting a physics degree, and when you take electromagnetism, you learn about the right hand rule. Do you know the right hand rule?
Yes, I do.
All right. So you point your thumb for people that are not you. You point your thumb using your right hand. That's why it's called the right hand rule, not the left hand rule. You point your thumb in the direction of the current in a wire, right? And your fingers, because it's your right hand, will curl in the direction of the magnetic field, right? It's a right hand rule. So
got it.
I took a test in physics in this class, and I'm right-handed. I must write the answer with my right hand. I did the entire test using my left hand to figure out what direction the magnetic field was going in everything. And the teacher, thankfully, I got nothing on the first problem, nothing on the second problem. When she got to the second or third page, she wrote a note on the top that said, I realized what you did. And she went back and she gave me partial credit for some of the earlier problems because I did the entire test with my left hand. I will have you know, it is not the left hand rule. It is the right hand rule. So there you go. Anyway, that was one of my flub ups in college. Cause I did well on the test. I understood it, but, you can still get the exact opposite.
Your right hand was busy, so you just used the other one. My right hand
was busy. Exactly. I'm multitasking. Oh, anyway. Okay. So yes, clearly that is measuring the magnetic field, and there's a formula. No, it's like V equals IR, but that's just for voltage. I don't remember. Anyway, but yeah, I'm sure that they're measuring the strength of the magnetic field there to determine how much current is flowing through the wire. Anyway.
Yeah. So it looked like a fun project,
cool.
And I was like, I even have some of the ADC connector leftover MCP3008 ADC connector, the analog to digital chips. I have some of those laying around. I'm like, ooh, I'm looking at this going, I have a lot of these parts. Oh, this is so down the list. I'm still working on the stupid microscopes.
Right.
So
okay, that is cool though. That is really cool.
It looked fun. All right, that was my something fun.
That is really cool. Okay, but okay, you got to finish the microscope. How are you gonna?
I know.
Okay, all right.
I know.
All right. Well, I've been really bad these last couple of weeks because I've not been bringing the fun things. But when I saw this tonight, that you were gonna mention that you had been listening to The Way of Kings again, I was like, ooh, that's right. I watched a video by Brandon Sanderson. This was a couple weeks ago, and he's doing a Kickstarter for a leather-bound edition of The Way of Kings because it's its 10th anniversary from publishing, and as I'm out here, I was kind of like, oh, that'd be kind of fun. Maybe I'll ask for that for Christmas. But then I realized that it was like $200 for the books. So I was like, I love these books, but I'm probably out, just cause I'm cheap, but, it's still pretty cool. And I'm noticing they're at 5.8 million pledged of their $250,000 goal with, almost 24,000 backers. So I don't know how many of those have backed it for the actual books, but there are. Oh, it looks like most, because signed leather edition 2300, and And I think that they're now out. Remember what you did something for the dice that you were like, I'm not going to get those for like a year. They're now estimated delivery for the leather-bound books is April of 2021.
Yeah.
At this point. So.
Yeah, they sold out of $500 a piece, 975 backers. So looks like 2,000 people ponied up $500 a piece for, signed and numbered, etc. And yeah, not cheap, but clearly a lot of fans. I'm looking at this going, I want the poster. I just want the poster. I think the poster looks really cool. The Bridge Forward poster.
Let me go down for which poster are you talking about?
The Bridge Forward poster.
Oh man, those are great illustrations.
Yeah.
See,
so I would go. I'm tempted to go for the tier 2 $50. I get the digital book and the digital art, and I don't need a leather bound fancy book, but I think the poster would be cool. So, anyway,
this is my something fun. So if you haven't actually read The Way of Kings, you should read The Way of Kings. It is fantasy. It is awesome.
All right.
Yeah. There we go.
That is cool. I like the art. I wish I could get just, prints of the art itself to add to my my collection down in the basement.
Oh, I see. Yeah, exactly.
I'll put it on the wall.
I see.
Alrighty.
Yeah, that would be cool. All right, my friend. Have a safe drive back to the land of Idaho.
The land of potatoes.
Land of potatoes. Ooh, go to that Boise Fry.
The Boise Fry Company. Get purple potatoes. Purple fries. They're good.
Yum. All right. Why am I hungry? All right.
Go have a pickle.
All right, Eric. I'll talk to you later.
All right. See you.
Bye.
Bye, John.